As far back as I know, I believe that early Mennonites came from the country of Russia and took a long boat trip to the country of Mexico and the country of Canada in the late 1800s. Later on, in around the 1930s, when I actually have documents of my family, they were living in Alberta, Canada, but moved to Chihuahua, Mexico. My great-grandfather Benjamin Dyke was born in Alberta, Canada, and so was my great-grandmother, Maria Dyke. After they met and got married, they moved to Chihuahua, Mexico in the 1950s. The area they lived in Mexico was called Rubio. Rubio was a small town in the middle of nowhere and was hours away from any big cities or big civilization. They lived off the land there. There was no hydro. They had to use outhouses, and most of the jobs they were farming, because that was a big industry there. My older generation speak Low German and also a little bit of English. After my great-grandparents got settled into Mexico, they had their first kid, my grandfather Cornelius Dyke, in 1958. He later on met my grandmother, Elizabeth Dyke, and had 5 children together. The oldest, my Aunt Mary, then my mother, Lisa, then my Aunt Angie, and finally my Aunt Tina and Uncle Benny. They were not all born in the same country, though. My grandparents moved back and forth between Canada and Mexico a lot, so some were born in Mexico and some were born in Canada. My oldest Aunt Mary was born in Canada. Then they moved back to Mexico, where my mother was born in Rubio, and my Aunt Angie was born also in Rubio. Finally, they moved back to Canada for good, where they had my Aunt Tina and my Uncle Benny in St. Thomas, Ontario. My mother met my dad, Ryan Berwick, in 1990 from living in the same subdivision together and going to the same school in Elmer, Ontario. They went to high school together at East Elgin High School in Elmer. In the last year of high school, my parents unexpectedly found out that they were about to have their first child, me, Dominick Berwick. I was born on June 8th, 2001 in St. Thomas, Ontario. 2 years later, they had my only sibling, my sister, Haley Berwick, also in St. Thomas, Ontario, on December 13th, 2003. Even though my parents had children at a young age, they both still finished high school with good grades and achieved their career goals. My mom is currently working in the hospital, and my dad is an international truck driver. My family has been through a lot in Canadian history and has a lot more to come from my generations. This has been my place in Canadian history.